possible. And in the long run, I'm optimistic, but short run, I'm pessimistic.
You're pessimistic in the short run. Let's talk about some of that pessimism, because one of the things that you said earlier this year was that at one point you felt, quote, you had peered over the cliff edge. And this, I think, was a comment not just about the state of the world, but the state of business and even some of your investments. What did you mean by that?
Well, I saw the possibility of a lot of economic crisis and affecting many people's job, many people's health, life, and also we have investment in many startup companies. They may not have enough funding beyond the other side of the Death Valley, and I was afraid that maybe some of them cannot make it. So that's what I was afraid. Regarding Softbank situation, we have enough funding, enough asset, but I thought the cash is very important in this kind of crisis. So I created a target, our internal own target of getting liquidity and the cash on hand. So I said we're going to create $41 billion, $42 billion of cash piling inside with liquidation of some of the asset. And we do the share buyback. We do enough funding for ourselves for new investment, but also to protect ourselves. So it's the first time in our history to liquidate many of the assets as quickly as possible. We overachieved that target by almost 2x.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. A lot of people were surprised at how aggressively you've been selling assets. And the question I was going to ask is, what do you want to do with all that cash?
No, as I said, the short run, I'm pessimistic that it's still increasing, the second wave or third wave of the COVID-19 around the world. And of course, the vaccine is coming, medical antibodies coming, but who knows, in the next 2-3 months, any disaster could happen. So we're just preparing for the worst case scenario.
But for the audience, I hate to be pessimistic given your optimism about life usually. What does that worst case scenario look like to you?
Well, look, before mass production, distribution of the antibodies, the vaccine comes, some major company could crash. The savior of those collapse of the domino effect could happen. Like a Lehman crisis, just one bank crisis made entire the banking industry shake up, and that made worldwide crash of the stock market. So anything can happen in this kind of situation. I think it's getting better with the news of the vaccines success of the early test, but I still want to be prepared for the worst case scenario. So that's why today we have now almost $80 billion cash in hand ourselves.
Are you surprised at how well the values of specifically technology companies have held up during this period?
Yeah, well, look, when people work from home, people stay home and study at home, what can they do? They have to still connect with people. Like this, we have to have a video conference, we have to have the education online and business in online, the purchase of the product online. So it's accelerating the companies with the finished digital transformation or in the leading position of those they would be a beneficiary of acceleration of the change of the paradigm shift. So, of course, they may suffer a short time for the advertisement revenue and so on, but many of them are actually having record high net income.
So when you think about deploying that $80 billion, is that just a rainy day fund because you're worried about having to finance your own companies, or is that because you think there's going to be some kind of calamitous moment at which you would hopefully come in and swoop up and buy other assets?
Yeah, many optionalities. Okay, if we can invest in these AI, front end companies, if we can invest more into those opportunities, I will be aggressive, and it is maybe a better price now for the investing into unicorns because they need the funding. And of course, if our share price drop down, I want to buy back our own shares much cheaper and much more ownership to myself because I'm a believer of our own company. In March, our share price dropped down, I think, almost 70%. In 2-3 weeks, I said, "Oh my God, this is the best time for me to buy back our own share." And our discount to our underlying asset went over 70%, like 75%. So I could buy our own company 1/4 the price of underlying asset. I said, "Oh my God, I should buy." So cash was the best thing that I could have for all kinds of optionalities.
Masa, there were reports at one point that you were thinking of taking the company private. Is that still something you think about?
No comment. I cannot make comment on such a thing.
Does that mean it's still on the table, potentially?
Well, no comment.
Okay, let me try. You know what? I'm going to try a different tact on a different issue, but it's somewhat related. It's about taking a company private. That I was actually curious if you really today would have wanted to. About 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember when Elon Musk wanted to take his company private, and I think there was a moment at which you were thinking about trying to invest in it. In retrospect, do you think?
I was once with a guy discussing with him, and if I had enough money, or if I had enough guts, or if I was smart enough, I should have invested in his idea, and I'm not smart enough, so I bang my head,
How much do you?
This is a lesson that Adam Newman himself is telling himself he made a mistake, and he's a smart guy. I think he admit he made a few mistakes. I think that he's a smart guy, he's an aggressive guy, he has a lot of capability, he can convince people, he's a great leader, but he made some mistake. Any human makes some mistake, and in a total score, his investment, his decisions, and I'm part of the responsibility of his mistake. So I still love him, I still respect him. I'm sure he would come back and do some great stuff in his rest of the life. So I'm a big believer that someday he will be very successful, and he would say he has learned a lot from his prior life. But again, we made a lot of loss in the investment in WeWork, billions of dollars, and that is my mistake. Okay, but luckily we have some other hit. So in total score, we are still positive. Tens of billions of dollars. So I'm hopeful that other investment in our vision fund will make us additional profit.
Let me ask you a different question about investing, because there are a lot of investors that are on this call. One of the things that you've done this year, which is different for you, is you made some very big investments, equity investments in the stock market through options and other things. And I think there's a lot of people trying to understand what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to do there, because you've historically spent so much time talking about wanting to own things for the long term, and some of these were shorter term bets.
Look, what is SoftBank Group right now? SoftBank Group, we are investment company, and we are investment company, but only one focus, information revolution. That has been a case for us for many, many years. From the beginning of our last 40 years journey of SoftBank, we are only focused one thing, that is the information revolution. Sometimes we are operator ourselves, sometimes we were investor, so we invest into Yahoo US, create Yahoo Japan, and if there is any concerns specifically, there should be a discussion of how to mitigate that, okay? And there is always a technical solution without making it too much political, I think. Of course, people can have the politicians, and some people can have always concern. But if there is a concern, let's discuss specific technical solutions. And there's, as I said, there's always a solution.
A couple more questions.
Instead of hating each other.
I have a couple more questions, and we're getting a lot coming in from the audience. So let me just ask you a couple quick ones. You're asked, how to the top, frankly. Bitcoin is now moving again, as you know. Is it the future?
Well, one of my friends strongly recommended that I should invest at least 1% of my asset, my personal asset, invest 1% into Bitcoin, so that at least you can feel something that you don't understand. I said, I don't understand. So, but he said, okay, just try out, don't argue, try out, put it 1%. I said, okay, maybe you are right, something that I don't know. So I would like to see how I feel. So I invest, I think a couple of $100 million, $200 million or something. That is like 1% of my asset at that time. And I was looking at the price, and every day I said up or down. So I said, this is no good. This is something I don't understand. But my mind share is somewhat affected. I'm at least looking at 5 minutes a day. How the price was, and I said, this is distracting my focus on my own business, so which I don't understand. It may go up later, it may go down later, but I don't want to spend 1 minute at least checking the price every day. So I said, okay, I would sell whatever the price. And I sold with some loss. Maybe I lost 50 million, I don't know, I forgot. But I lost some money, and I sold it. And I feel so much better. Today it's maybe more than the price I sold, but I feel so much better because at least I don't have to put my mind in something I don't understand.
So this is not something long-term you think is going to be necessarily the future. I know you're somebody who's thinking 300 years out.
Yeah, I think digital currency is definitely going to be useful, and with the security and so on, I think digital currency will definitely be there. But I don't know what digital currency, what structure, and so on. I would rather focus my 300 years for something that I feel passionate in, which is the AI focus right now. I want to stay only on that.
Well, let me ask you two questions, and then I know we got to leave you, but one of the questions I wanted to ask is specifically about AI. Back in 2017, you said the following. You said, we're going to have white-collar jobs and we have blue-collar jobs, but there's a new collar that's going to start. It's called the metal collar. And the metal collar will not only replace most blue-collar jobs, but many white-collar jobs too. So when they become so smart and muscles move, this is robots, what is the definition of mankind's job? What should it be? What's going to happen to replace many of our jobs? And you asked the questions, but I'm curious 3 years later whether you think you have perhaps an answer.
Well, I think it is accelerating to happen. The AI is getting smarter and smarter, as we see in the last 3 years. I think that this will accelerate many of the jobs that mankind used to do would be replaced. So we don't have to work 8 hours a day. We don't have to work 10 hours a day. Maybe 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day. Most people can still have enjoyable and productive, working days and hours. And all back 100 years ago, people had to work so much to just get the water every day, just to get the food every day. Now we don't have to do that. It's available 24 hours without going to the mountain or river. But many of the hustle that we still have today, like cleaning the street and manufacturing products, they will be all replaced by robots. So people can utilize the hours more human-like thing.
Let me ask you a final question. Also, this came in, I should tell you, a couple of versions of this came in over Twitter. Being an entrepreneur, it's the age-old question. Being an entrepreneur, are you born with it or can you learn it?
I think anybody can learn. It's equal opportunity. Opportunity is there. It's just your mindset. It's just your effort that you want to go for that.
But what do you think it is about you? Because you wanted this so badly, even when you were 16 years old. You knew it and you had that passion.
Yeah, well, look, in Japan, when you are born, when you grow up, you have to have the original home address that you register to the local government. Okay? I was born on a street with no street number. It was not legal place to build a home. So most other people, 99.99% people, live in a home with a home address. I'm born in a home with the official registration in the Japanese government book that I'm born and raised with no street number. Okay? So I start from nowhere. I wanted to become some meaningful guy, at least with a street number.
Well, Masa-san, you have become a meaningful guy, and you have a street number, if not many more. And we appreciate you joining us today, doing this virtually. I hope we get a chance to see you all in person. I want to thank everybody for asking these questions, for participating and trying to make this as in person as humanly possible. Masa, before we go, I want to ask everybody in the audience to participate in a quick poll. And we're going to ask this question again, I think, tomorrow as well, in large part because we just had a conversation at some point during our discussion about whether there's a market bubble. And I thought we should ask our audience to find out what they think about that very issue right now. So real quick, if you go into the polling feature on the screen, do you believe that there's a market bubble right now? We're going to ask it. And I don't know, should we show the answer right now, or do you think what we should do is show the answer tomorrow? We're going to show the answer tomorrow during the Jamie Dimon session. So go answer it if you can. Masa, again, a big thank you. I will usually, when we do this at Lincoln Center, sometimes people even stand up and applaud. So I will give you a quick thank you.
I want just 1 second, okay?
Yep.
When we had a beginning of internet, the same question was asked. Is the internet a bubble? And actually, net bubble crashed in year 2000. But the peak of the net bubble today was not the peak. It was just the beginning of internet revolution. So the question it should be is it the bubble of within the short period, or is it the bubble in looking at 10 years or 20 years? Is this a bubble or not? The answer will be very much different depending on the time span that you ask and think. I think this is just the beginning of AI revolution, the tech revolution, information revolution. SoftBank value of the asset that we own has grown 157 times in the last 18 years. When the same period, New York Dow has increased 2.7 times, Tokyo Stock Exchange 2.1 times, Nasdaq 6 times. SoftBank, from the crash, people thought this was internet bubble crash. I think this is the exciting beginning of the glory and excitement of the future of AI and the information revolution.
Well, boy,
that's my opinion. May have affected your poll, sorry.
Well, boy, do I hope, and I imagine we all hope that you are right. Masa-san, thank you so much for joining us. We may ask that question tomorrow again. We'll get you the answers tomorrow as well. We very much appreciate it. I do hope to see you in person very, very soon. And thank you again for joining us. And thank you all for joining us as well. We'll see you back here at 11 o'clock